I know, I'm late. Sorry. Hey, Web Bixby's here. See, I just beat Web to the room. There we go. There are other people there, but I can't really see that right now. I apologize. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Happy Monday. Happy Mondays. Did they do Here's Where the Story Ends? Was that them? That was the Sundays, wasn't it? Who were the Happy Mondays? I can't remember. I'll look it up later, and we'll do a whole show about it later this week. How would that be? Right. I think I'm recording. Let me double check that. Yes. Okay. I am recording. So why don't we do a show? What do you say? It'll be fun. $2 less. And one more thing. It is Monday, the 9th of November, 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. Can you feel it? There's new stuff coming. Tomorrow's the big thing, right? Tomorrow's the One More Thing event, and that's it. Although I have an idea about that, but we'll talk about it later. Hi, I'm Ken Ray. Thank you very much for joining me for this edition of macOS Ken Live. Kind of an offshoot of macOS Ken, which is a daily thing that I'll do. I do thing, right? I'll tell you more about that later. Second half of the show, we'll talk about expectations, last minute guesses, checks, whatever, for the One More Thing event. Of course, Apple, as we record this tomorrow, but as some people hear it probably today or earlier today or whatever, expected to announce Apple Silicon Macs and maybe some other stuff too. We'll touch on that in the second half of the show. First half of the show, though, I have been just a roller coaster of thought and emotion today. Over $2. $2. Hence the two more dollars and one more thing. Incredibly good news from Pfizer today. Potentially incredibly good news from Pfizer today. This is from a Vox article that I read. Pfizer claims its COVID-19 vaccine is 90% effective. That's incredible news. That's wonderful, wonderful news. Because since what? I want to say December of last year, towards the very, very, very end of last year, is the first time I heard about COVID-19, which we weren't even calling it then because that wasn't a name for it. First time I mentioned it on macOS Ken was the end of January, middle of March. We closed down. Stores open, close, stores open, close, states open and close, countries open and close. And we're still in the midst of that right now. Europe is, either in lockdown or mockdown, depending on who you ask, depending on which country you're talking about, depending on who seems to be taking it more seriously. Cases and deaths are still going up here. It's not fun. And so, of course, it is exciting news when Pfizer comes out with another company, the name of which I do not have in front of me, when they come out together and say, hey, we've got 90% effective rate of stopping the transmission of COVID-19 with this vaccine. That's exciting. Then, of course, there are all the caveats, which I read about in the Vox piece. And, out and saying it's 90% effective so far. And that's so far. Literally, we're at the very beginning. Well, I guess they're in phase 3 of their trials, but for all intents and purposes, we're at the very beginning of what's going on there. Some of the things that Vox warned against, as they say, the results are promising, but they're drawn from a very small number of infections. So it's not definitive. Distribution is months away at the earliest, and also distribution on this is going to be difficult. It needs to be stored at negative 80 degrees Celsius, which I was reading is negative 112 degrees Fahrenheit. According to the World Health Organization, more than half of all vaccines in the world go to waste, mainly because they spoil due to flaws in temperature control. So it's going to be a tough thing to get it all out, and that assumes that it all works. Why are we talking about this so much? Because tech shares got sold off today. Tech shares got sold off today because, now you see, we don't know. It appears to be because the market is reacting positively to the positive news around the vaccine. Or is it? I started to go a tiny bit. I got a little bit upset earlier when a number of shares went down because of the possibility of this vaccine, as if everything is solved tomorrow. But I'm trying to like pull my head out of that and really talk about the kinds of things that I always talk about when people get upset with me when I talk so much about what the financial analysts say. Generally speaking, I don't concern myself with moves in the market that much. And by the way, if you're new here, if you have no idea who I am and wondering whether you should be taking investment advice from me, you absolutely should not. I don't advise on investment. I'm just a guy who's been watching this stuff for a few years and thinking about it and talking about it. I used to produce a financial talk show for somebody else. I'm fascinated with Wall Street's thoughts on Apple because Wall Street's thoughts on Apple sort of guide sentiment. And also, there are some smart people. Let me scratch that. They're probably all smart people. I don't always agree with all of them. My favorite analyst hasn't been in the Apple watching game for like 10 or 12 years. He was a guy named Shaw Wu. I don't know what it was about the way he thought, but the way he thought about Apple just, clicked with me. It made sense. And there are some great ones, there are some not great ones, but they at least spend part of their time studying Apple, which is what I spend most of my time doing in a different way. And so that's one of the reasons I pay attention to them. The reason I don't, generally speaking, pay much attention to daily moves in the stock market is because they're daily moves in the stock market. They hardly matter. And that's what I keep trying to bring myself back to today, because to watch money leave Zoom, to watch money leave Apple, which fell $2.37, I believe it was today, hence the $2, because there is the possibility of a vaccine. There are so many other hurdles over which we have to get. You have to figure out how to distribute. Well, first of all, I have to figure out if the vaccine actually works, like actually works. Then we have to figure out how to get it out to everybody. And then, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a large portion, at least in the US population, that doesn't even think this is a real thing or that it's a thing to worry about. I have, from a family member, since this whole thing started, received a video about how the vaccine was actually going to be used to chip us. Getting a vaccine is just the very beginning, and we haven't even done that yet. And yet, you have shares of cruise lines going up today, shares of Peloton going down. You have shares of airlines going up today. It's cute. Airlines, they go up. You have shares of Apple going down. And the first thing that I got caught on is, how could we be this dumb? And I realized we're not. Nobody is actually this dumb. Nobody is actually this dumb. What happened today, and this is again a guess, and talk to real people who actually know something. This is just what has been going on in my head all day. What happened today is, for the first time in months, somebody saw a light at the end of the tunnel for the cruise industry. It was suddenly not stupid to think about putting money in the cruise industry, shares of which have been, just cratered or sunk, if you want to keep doing the metaphor tied to mode of transportation thing. I don't know that anybody who bought whatever cruise line today actually thinks they're going to hold on to it for any length of time. What happened today was there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And so somebody, large organizations, I'm assuming, not guys, who spend, $100, $200, $500 buying shares, although some of those as well. You had large organizations today look at cruises and go, this is my guess. Right, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Cruise lines are cheap right now. I'm going to buy into cruise lines. They do that. Other people follow. That drives up the shares. They can then go ahead and get out. It makes no sense that the day before Apple is going to rebuild its entire way that it sells and literally builds and sells Macs. It makes no sense that Apple would fall today. That Apple just released 2 new iPhones and 1 new HomePod. 2 of those 3 devices are selling out right now. I think the iPhone 12 mini, I believe you can still get, no problem. But the iPhone 12 Pro Max is sold out, going out a few weeks. The HomePod mini, surprisingly, is sold out going out to the middle of December. It looks like, for both the space gray and the white. And then, of course, you've got the demand that's already existed for the iPhone 12 Pro. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. Might be Amit Daryanani over at Evercore, says that what people are choosing are the highest end iPhones. It makes no sense that people would get out of Apple today unless they wanted to take some of that money off the table, put it into cruise lines, wait for that to go back up a tiny bit. Because here's the thing, we're not going back to work tomorrow. We're not going back to work 6 months from now. Hopefully, we're going to have jobs. I'm emphasizing the going part. Some people may go back to the office, but that's still gonna be reduced capacity. Um, a friend of mine who works for a major corporation, I probably shouldn't say anything about where or what, he told me back in May that even though they were, theoretically assuming that the whole thing passed, which we were thinking in May it might, relatively soon. He told me back in May that they were saying that they're gonna go back, yeah, probably December, January, but the secret meetings in the C suites or the C-level suites or whatever, the corner offices, were that they're never coming back. They're saving too much money by not coming back to the office. So even if you do get, a vaccine that works, even if you do get something like normalcy, people are still going to be working out from home. So it makes as little sense to sell Peloton as it did to buy it. People are still going to be working from home. And so this new raft of Macs that Apple is introducing, I got very upset over $2. And I realized none of it actually has to do with what's really going on. It is large amounts of money saw ways to move a bit of money to make other large amounts of money. You didn't need to be put through that, but that's what I've been going through for the 25 minutes I've been awake today. And I feel better having gotten it all out, so thanks a lot. I hope that made sense. I see the chat room over there is going nuts, but I can't read it yet, which is good. If you have any thoughts on what I just said, let me know. info@macosken.com, or you can leave a comment right here on this video. I was going to say maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow, but we won't. Join me here tomorrow live. If you're getting this audio podcast, this is the thing I would love for you to do tomorrow. Come by for the live show tomorrow, because tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, other times, other places. What's that, like 1,300 hours in the UK? No, because 1,300 hours is 1 p.m. Eastern. Anyway, Apple's going to announce whatever it's going to announce, and that's what we're going to be talking about here tomorrow. So please join us tomorrow for one more thing after one more thing. Here, by the way, is the funny thing that I think it would be great if Apple is drunk. If all of Apple is drunk and they've said one more thing, and we're like, all right, so that's it for the year, right? And then in December, you get like sort of a scrawled out invitation that says, and another thing. I like that idea. Right, so let's talk really quickly about tomorrow. Everybody seems to be, well, not everybody, a lot of people seem to be all of a sudden concentrating on price of the new Macs. I read two really interesting articles. One was JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee issued a note that was picked up by Apple Insider. And then Ian Sherr over at CNET also wrote some thoughts of his own on what we can expect from tomorrow, or what we can hope for from tomorrow. What's funny is they both want a lower cost Mac, but Ian Sherr is like, looking for something way under $1,000, whereas Samik Chatterjee is like, hopefully we can get something around $1,000. Now, we've already got something around $1,000, but he's looking for things like higher end things to come down lower in price so that the whole line maybe averages a bit less than it does currently. Seems kind of a weird thing for somebody to Wall Street to hope for, but of course, then you start selling more of them. He's also figuring that the cost of making the Macs that Apple is going to introduce tomorrow will come down quite a bit. What did I read earlier? The bill of materials on a laptop, 20% of it goes to the processor. I believe I read that earlier, and I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me. Didn't mean to talk about it. That's why it's not here in the notes, but it was something I came across earlier. So, of course, if Apple can make their own, not pay the huge licensing fees that they're paying to, are for a while paying to Intel, theoretically they can lower their price. The question then is, do they just keep their margins high, or do they lower the price for us as well, us being the consumer? I still really like that idea. Wouldn't it be weird if you could get a full power Mac that costs less than an iPhone? I mean, there's no reason you couldn't. It's just a question of, how much does Apple want to lose in that exchange, I guess, as far as margins and things like that. There were some other interesting things that Mr. Schur wrote over at CNET. It's kind of funny because he says what's likely to change more than anything about the new Macs, because he's already talked about in his article, which I'm not going to go over here. He's already talked about Mac OS 11 Big Sur looking so much like the iPhone and looking more like part of the iOS, iPadOS ecosystem than it does a Mac. What's likely to change more than anything is on the outside of the laptop and desktop, he said. Apple's iPhones and iPads don't have fans to keep their chips cool. Analysts are betting that if Apple can pull off the same trick with its computers, the fans that take up space and force the laptop to be thicker might disappear. He seems to be pining for some kind of redesign. The only thing that he can figure that would be would actually be a thinner laptop. Maybe I'm persnickety. Well, I know I'm persnickety. Maybe on this, I'm persnickety. I don't really want my laptop to be much thinner. My, what is this, 15-inch MacBook Pro? It's still kind of heavy. I'm not complaining about that. I like the weight of it, honestly. It's a tiny bit too thin. Not too thin, it's fine, but how much thinner do we need it to be? I don't know. Aside from those changes, says Mr. Schur, and what if speculation about detachable laptop iPad hybrids, Apple watchers seem hard-pressed to come up with design change ideas. So does HP. That's why they keep making them look like the MacBook. It's hard to imagine, and that's the thing, it's hard to imagine. I'm not an industrial designer. Johnny Ive has gone off to do his own thing. Do we want a laptop to look different? Is there a way that is there an automatic thing that you say, man, it would be great if a laptop did this? Now, having just asked that question, here's what I would love. If you can make it thin enough that you can put more displays in it, so that when I open up my laptop, rather than it opening straight to my, screen at which I'm staring right now, if it actually had a couple of hinges there and you open those, and so then you've got like sort of a wider display, or maybe 3 little screens, instead of the whole thing where they're like, hey, take your iPad and put it next to your computer and that's your second display. That might be fun, but that's just trying to think of like, okay, well, how could you make it different? Although now, having thought of it and said it out loud, that is exactly what I want all of my laptops to look like from now on. It'd be great. You could put wings on it, and then they'll pop right off, and you'll have to buy more. What's the reparability? iFixit, can you tell me? I don't know. I'm still into the whole idea of them playing with the price, because Apple is obviously banking a lot on changing the Mac. And what's funny is, before COVID-19, I don't want to say we didn't care about the Mac, but the Mac was no longer a star. The Mac is now a huge star in Apple's earnings because while they missed on iPhone sales last quarter because they didn't introduce any new iPhones, they crushed it on iPad because of all the people doing school from home and work from home, and they crushed it on the Mac because of all the people doing school from home and work from home. So you don't really actually need to do anything to excite people about the Mac at this point, and yet Apple is obviously putting a lot into that. When they said earlier this year that they were going to start the transition to Apple Silicon by the end of this year, I still figured this was going to be a press release. I still figured that the new Macs with Apple Silicon were going to be a press release. It is possible that they are going to talk more to the gearheads tomorrow, that they're going to talk more to the developers tomorrow. One of the rumors that I saw last week was that test flight for the Mac may finally come out tomorrow. And test flight for the Mac may finally come out tomorrow, but that's not going to be the center of tomorrow's event. I'd be surprised if it might get mentioned at tomorrow's event if it's going to happen, but if it does, it will be one of those lines that Tim Cook swallows, right along with, and by the way, you can go buy one of these today, if he does that again. It's possible it's going to be a more developer-centric thing, but why do the big dog and pony at that point? It feels like you've got to introduce something that's really going to excite the consumer. And the ways to excite the consumer might be with a different design, might be with a jaw-dropping price, might be with a financing thing that people keep talking about, like the Apple for Life thing. I'll be really curious to see what they do, which is a ludicrous thing to say because, of course, I'll be curious to see what they do. I do daily Apple stuff, but there is so many different ways that they could play. Tomorrow could just be new hardware. And of course, there's the other new hardware. There's the over-the-ear headphones that people are still thinking they might get. There's the Tile thing that people are thinking they might get. Their dual charging thing that I can't remember the name of, the MagSafe dual charger, I think, the one where you can put your phone on one side and your watch on the other, that got FCC approval today. So it's possible that Apple will mention that tomorrow. Not again, not as a centerpiece of anything that they're doing, but I mean, they may throw the kitchen sink at it tomorrow because tomorrow theoretically is the last time that they will, talk to everybody in a big way before the holidays, unless they get drunk and come back with and another thing. I really want that. I want a December event now just so they can go and another thing. Well, you said one more thing. Well, I thought of something else. Trying to think if there are any other hardware things that we might see tomorrow. Well, I mean, like that story that we talked about last week, there's also the or some other surprise. I mean, there are all kinds of hardware things we could see tomorrow of the ones that people are expecting. It's, 1 to 3 max seems to be what most people are saying. I don't see any reason it couldn't be more, but 1 to 3 max seems to be what most people are saying. I think people have settled on 3 at this point. AirTags and maybe the headphones. That's about it. So you can tell me what you think is going to happen if you want to, but we're not going to have time to talk about it again before we talk to everybody tomorrow after it's already happened. So, yeah, kind of exciting. 10 a.m. Nope, 10 a.m. Pacific. Oh, 10 a.m. Eastern would be terrible. What would that be, like 7 Pacific and 1,300 hours in Hawaii? I'm sure you'll be watching it tomorrow. I'm probably not going to be tweeting or anything like that, but we'll get back together here tomorrow, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, and talk about all this stuff. I've also got guests lined up for the second half of the week on in a few minutes to talk about their reactions. Adam Christensen's going to be joining me, Allison Sheridan, a couple of other people I've got calls out to, so we'll see what happens. I know Chuck Joyner, I don't know if he's in the house today, but Chuck Joyner is doing a big thing with a big group of people Tuesday night that'll end up filling up the rest of the week for Mac Voices as well. So there's going to be lots to talk about and lots of time to do it. I hope you will join me to talk about it live tomorrow afternoon. If you're here in the chat room, please stay in the chat room. I'll be by momentarily. If you're not, we wish you were. We decorated. We thought you were coming. Talk to you soon. Hey, look, everybody, I recorded the show today. Kind of exciting. Let me put on my glasses. Why did I say let me put on my glasses? Are you going to stop me from putting on my glasses? All right, first of all, I didn't do Romper Room earlier. So there is Frank Petrie. There's Chuck. There's John. There's Don. They don't rhyme, but they almost do. There's Roger. Webb Bixby. I already said, hey, Webb Bixby. There's Donna. Musketeers. All right. Rob is also here. All right. What are people saying? Oh, interesting. Rob is saying that his Apple Care has already started on his phone that he doesn't have yet. That's kind of a bummer. Maybe it's because they threw it on the ground and they want you to know that it's covered. David also got notified that his Apple Care has started for his phone that he does not have. 90% is extremely high if true. Yeah, John, you're not wrong. Sorry. We're back at the beginning of the show, obviously. John is talking about the fact that 90% is extremely high for the vaccine if that holds, and you're not wrong. It's just weird that, well, like I say, it's seriously, I started reading reaction to it earlier today, and what bothered me was sort of, we just talked about it. I'm not going to go over it again. I'm sorry, because we just did that. Okay. I can't possibly be, David, that people are getting out more. Sorry, David, responding to what I had said earlier, Apple, Zoom, Bigly, and text went down, possibly because there are hints of people getting out and having less time for the screens. The travel industry soared today. Yeah, I'm not getting on a plane anytime soon. Are you? Which, I mean, I wasn't a huge traveler anyway, but it feels early. Unless it was, people saying, "Hey, cool, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we can make some money in the past few days." Yeah, Webb says it's promising news, but a long way to go. That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm very sorry to hear that, David. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today who had, David says he and his girlfriend have long hauler COVID symptoms since they had COVID in March. I was talking to a friend of mine today who was suffering. She was diagnosed in March and was still had symptoms into July, I want to say, but she's now saying that she is symptom free. I don't know. I mean, I know there's so much that we don't know about the long haulers. I don't know if it goes away for everyone or if it will go away for everyone. I was surprised, honestly, to find that she's showing no symptoms anymore because it was months and months and months. Anyway, David, I am sorry, and I hope that you and she are better. More new stuff tomorrow, says Bill. That was earlier. Chuck Joyner says the market wants to be reactionary and clairvoyant all at the same time. I wrote down what I heard Horace Didier say at that thing that I went to like 2.5 years ago now. Still just an amazing day. The market is a constant battle between fear and greed. 4,300 hours in the UK, says Frank. That's so late, it's almost early again, right? Audio keeps clipping. What? The audio was clipping? Because my mic was low. Fern says he doesn't expect the prices to drop dramatically until the R&D costs are recovered. Aren't the R&D costs already recovered, though, because they've been putting these chips in their own phones for the past 7 or 8 years? I would think that the cost would be there, or that it's been absorbed the whole time. See, part of me thinks tomorrow they hit with crazy prices that nobody's expecting, and then they own the holidays and they own laptops going forward in ways that they don't currently. Oh, Matthew says we would like a laptop that you can update the hard drive, RAM, and replace the battery still. That's what people want. I would argue that's what some people want. I think the general consumer probably doesn't care that much, especially if they bring the price down to a point either where you're renting it and so just turn in your old laptop for a new one and let Apple deal with that, or they bring the price down so much that you have no problem buying one every couple of years and passing it on to somebody else, the way people have done for quite a while now with Dells and Chromebooks and things like that. Apple Silicon 32-inch iMac tomorrow is what David wants. He's not getting it. He knows that, but that's what he wants, he says. Ah, darn it, Richard. Richard says laptops. I think today is more about function rather than form. Touch screens are built-in cellular. I actually meant to talk about the built-in cellular because that was mentioned in one of those articles and I forgot about it. Now that 5G is, coming online, that is a possibility. What's funny is I remember Verizon selling cellular connected netbooks before the iPad, right? It was a thing that was offered, but people weren't really interested, I think, in renting their technology. I think people are actually more hip to the idea of renting their technology now. I mean, you'd still call it buying it, but it's an interesting idea. I do record it on a separate thing, Matthew. I don't know what was going on with the audio. I mean, seriously, looking at my, well, that's interesting. I'm actually getting no level on this right now. I'm sorry, guys, about the audio that I'm kind of curious to go back and listen to it. I'm getting no anything on here as far as what the audio is doing. Well, except I just turned it off and turned it back on. But I got lost somewhere in there. I apologize. That's an interesting idea. Bill says if there is a one more thing at the one more thing, how about a killer crossover app that shows off Apple Silicon? That is an interesting idea. All right. I now need to go and listen to this show because everybody's talking more about the talking more about the audio popping, and I'm curious about it now. Yeah. All right. Sorry. I need. I'm gonna go try to figure out the audio on this thing now because I'm a little worried about how it came out. Yeah, that was sort of my thought, Matthew. Sorry. Hold on a second. Going back to what something Vern said a minute ago, there are real costs involved with designing and QAing the new Mac system on its chips. Those aren't the same as the A14 Bionic, which they produce by the millions. Frank agrees with Vern. I don't disagree, but it's not like they're starting from scratch, right? I mean, they've climbed this high already on what they're designing. What Matthew said that made me go back to what Vern said, if they do come out with a low priced laptop, they totally could make up the losses in volume. I mean, it's not like they don't have billions and billions in the bank and would be willing to consider. That's what's going to turn on the consumer tomorrow. Because I'm assuming that this is a consumer thing, not a developer thing. What's going to turn on the consumer tomorrow? A laptop is a laptop, I think, as far as a lot of consumers are concerned. Yes, they might choose Windows over Mac or Mac over Windows, but a laptop is a laptop. What is it you're going to show them tomorrow? We expect our next laptop to be faster. We expect the screen to be better. Is there anything that they're going to show tomorrow that is going to make the consumers stand up and take notice or sit up and take notice the way the iPhone did or the way Apple Watch did or the way, yeah, let's go with iPhone and Apple Watch. Right. I'm going to go figure out what happened with the audio or try to figure out what happened with the audio. Yeah, thank you guys so much and gals for being here. I super, super appreciate it. Right. I'm really out. Take care. I will talk to everybody tomorrow. Do send me your thoughts on actually do that if you would. Send me your thoughts tomorrow, either info@macoscan.com or info@macoscan.com. Your reaction to what we see announced tomorrow at the event, because I would love to have your reaction to be part of the show. So yeah, please do that. Watch the thing, email me, Let me know what you like. Let me know what you hate. Let me know what surprised you. info@macosken.com. And take care, everybody.